Welcome to the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering podcast. This is the fifth in a series, and we hope you enjoy them and subscribe to receive them when produced. We're doing about one a month. I am Jim Buchanan, your host. I am the Gathering Committee Chair and have been serving on the Gathering Committee for 35 now of our 37 completed years. And next year is coming. Thank you to the Fane Signature Group, Talking Glass Media, Guy Rodgensen, Director, Cast 11, Tony Tedford, Multimedia Producer, and all of their staff. They have been extremely nice to work with, professional in every way, and we highly recommend them. Our 37th gathering is history. It was wonderful and successful. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our board, the committee, volunteers who worked all year long to bring it all together. Thanks to our sponsors, our donors, and patrons who support the gathering, the cowboy poets and musicians who were super again this year, and thanks to Yavapai College, Jim and Linda Lee Performing Arts Center, and their staff. They were all very, very good to work with. A very popular day session each year is our ranch history. And this year we featured the Kieckhefer family and their K4 Ranch. Their ranching history goes back over 100 years. It was really good, with lots of photos and slides, with comments from Johnny Kieckhefer and family members. Today, my guest is Joe Konkel, Ranch History Chair, past president and man of many talents. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Jim. Glad to be here.
Super good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Joe works with the ranch families and puts a lot of time into developing the ranch histories. Joe, tell us a little bit about that process, because I know it's way more than meets the eye.
Yeah. So every year we go through a list of potential candidates that we might want to feature during the ranch history, and then I will look at them and kind of decide which might be the best one for us, kind of given our objectives and so on, and then I'll contact them and see if they are interested. They're not all interested. Some I've been turned down several times.
But we've done this now for
28 years, I believe, or 26 years, since 1998, right? And we started with the Carter family in 1998, the Necktie Ranch, which is interesting. We kind of came around again this year with the Kieckefers and their connection to the Carters.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll make that contact. We'll get them to agree to it. And then what I'll do is I'll schedule a time where I'll sit down and do an interview, and generally spend about 2 hours or so, and just say, basically, tell me your story. And they will do that and give me all the details. And I say, go back as far as you can go. And let's, work through the history. And so we gather the details that way. And then what I do is I take that information and then go back and try to do research. Basically, I'll have a list of topics that they've told me about, and then I'll go in and try to find external information that might be out there. I'll look at obituaries and genealogy and comb through the internet looking for old articles and other things that may have been written, and try to pull together information. From that, I create about a 3 or 4 page article that gets published in the printed program each year. And so then once that is complete, of course, that's all reviewed by the ranch family. And once that's complete, then I work with the ranch family, and together we put together a photo presentation that they then give at the gathering. Really, it's basically collecting photos as well as we can to support sort of the outline that's laid out in the article, along with extra information. And what I tell them before they give the presentation, this is not your script. It's your guide. We want the background information, right? We want you to tell us stories. We want to know get much more than what's in the article. So, and we get that. It works out quite well. So that's how the process works.
And the core of that is that our mission of Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering is to preserve the Western heritage and culture and ranching and cowboys.
Oh, absolutely.
And bring them to the public today, which is, we live in a world where we're going too fast and we don't realize that there's still cowboys out there and there's ranchers out there and farmers and agriculture. And we enjoy eating their productivity every day.
Yeah.
You and I just had lunch and it was a good lunch. And, but that's why we do all of this. And I have to thank you for all of the hours you put into this every year because, we chat occasionally now and then with questions or where you're at in the process, and sometimes there's bumps in the road, but you persist, and that's really super.
We've been able to get it done. And sometimes it's been a challenge, but we've gotten it done every year.
And the Kieckefers, just interestingly, from my side of things, I came to Prescott in 1946, and our family, I was an infant then, but our family went to St. Luke's Church here in Prescott, and the Kieckefers went to church at St. Luke's Church with us, as did some other families like the James family and others. And then later in life, Johnny was, or John, I should say, not Johnny. Johnny's the son. But John was a few years ahead of me in high school and married Linda Shepard, who was a high school classmate of Barb and I's in Prescott High School. So we're in the same class together. So my respect and friendship with the Kieckefers goes way back, and I'm very proud of that.
Good.
Joe, how about giving us a summary of, I think you've created a history with 10 ranches or 10 years of summaries.
Right.
And how about if you share that with us now?
Okay, sure. So I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've got kind of a presentation we'll take a look at here that summarizes each one of the ranches that we've covered over the last 10 years. And I will tell you, I could easily spend an hour on each one. So that'll get us out of here at about 11:30 tonight. Is that going to work for everybody? But anyway, all right, this is a 20-minute presentation. And it does not do it justice. But I'll race through it, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So let me get it kicked off here.
Maybe someday in the future we can spend a little more time on ranch histories or a ranch history, and that would be, I think, a wonderful experience for our listeners and watchers.
I think it would. And as I go through this, I'm sure that anybody that's watching this podcast may be familiar with some of these families, if not very familiar with them. So all great people. Okay. So this, of course, we do this at the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering every year. And this is the list of the 10 ranches that we've done, or I have done anyway. 2015, we did Cameron Wingfield, and then we did the Neshams, and then we did, let me go back here. And then from the Neshams, we did the Hunts. From the Hunts, we did the Fain family. From the Fain family, we did then the Fletcher family. Fletcher, we did James family. From the James family, we did Monk Maxwell as a Cowboys cowboy. And then after Monk, we did the Campbell family up in Seligman, and then, of course, the Kieckefers this year. So what really kind of kicked this all off from a background perspective is the completion of the railroad in 1883 is really what opened up the cattle industry in Arizona. So that was huge. So in 2015, we started with the Cameron Wingfield family, and they came over on the Oregon Trail in 1865 over to Oregon and then brought about 200 head of cattle down into the Verde Valley. And that's how they got started. And that family is the Wingfield family. And then Sean Cameron, who's I dealt with, she's Louis Wingfield's daughter. On her mother's side is the Osborne family, so we'll cover that as well. John Osborne came here from Kansas, and he started the Chiricahua Ranch and down around Globe. And this was huge. There were a lot of people that worked for him, such as Chuck Shepard, Everett Bowman, Ike Rood, and others. Louis Wingfield owned several ranches throughout: the Horseshoe Ranch, the Valley Ranch, the AW Ranch, 51 Ranch, Wahala, and the Blue in eastern Arizona. And he and Dean also had other ranches in Mexico. So there's been 3 generations through there. Sean and Dean have since stepped back, and their children have taken over the ranches. But just a wonderful couple and a wonderful family, huge history there. The next family we did was the Nesham family. And the Neshams are interesting in that this is a story of a working cowboy that came down from North Dakota. He and his wife came down from North Dakota with their young son, Stefan, in 1962. They went to work for Harold James at the Coyote Spring Ranch, and then went and did a few other things. And then finally went to work out at the Indian Rock Ranch down around Kirkland. A lot of people may be familiar with that, working for Harvey Brannigan down there at the Indian Rock Ranch. And worked there in the 1970s. Galen's son, Stefan, took over the Muleshoe Ranch and ran it for several years. One thing about Galen and Rodella, they're very active with the church in Hillsdale and Hillside, and that's a huge part of their life. So presently, Galen and Stefan pasture cattle on the Thornbeak, at the Walking A's, the Tres Alamos, and the Pipeline Ranches down there around Baghdad. Just wonderful people. The next year we did the Hunt Ranch, the LO Ranch, and many folks may be familiar with John Albert, John Robert. They've got the stagecoach out there in Williamson Valley. Their heritage goes way back to the 1870s when Sam Crozier came and bought a ranch from Bud Grounds in the area called Crozier. She married Ida Baker. They had 6 children. One of them was Lonnie Crozier. Lonnie Crozier married Radford Withers Hunt. They had a child by the name of John William. John William, Lonnie died in childbirth. Ida went out and got John William and brought him back. They moved from the Kingman area and settled in Williamson Valley. Then John William, of course, he grew up and he married Bertha Stringfield. So then all of a sudden we had this link with the Stringfield family between the Hunts up in the kind of up around the ORO Ranch with the Stringfields down here toward Prescott. So we got into the whole Stringfield background and spent a lot of time on Albert Stringfield. We got some great old photos here of Albert Stringfield. But the Stringfields came over from Arkansas. On a wagon train in the 1870s. So here's photos of Albert and then the El Bar El Ranch headquarters, which is Williamson Valley. If you drive out in Williamson Valley now, this is what it looked like in the 1930s. Then photos, John Albert Hunt, who was John Williams' son, he married Mary Bijak, who sadly passed away about a month ago. We're sorry to see her go. and continued to run the ranch. Now, one thing about them, they were huge lion hunters, and this is one of the most successful lion hunters in Arizona. So this had to be a part of their history. We had to put that in there. And here's a photo of the ranch looking down on the ranch headquarters. Off in the distance is the K4. Back on this side would be the ORO, and the folks riding out for spring works. The next ranch we did was the Haverfield ranches. The story of Vern Haverfield and his daughter Claudette. Claudette actually did the history. When I met Vern, he was 89 years old. He has since passed away. He passed away at the age of 92. But his history is just unbelievable. He ran away from home when he was 6 years old, and went through a string of jobs in various different locations up in Montana, ended up with the ranch and rain and ranch supply in Great Falls, Montana, bought a ranch, the Lazy Creek Ranch in Whitefish, Montana in 1959. Just a beautiful area up there, ran those two businesses. Then in 1965, he decided to buy the Four Winds Ranch in Tumacocorry Mission, Arizona. So it came from Montana to Arizona. And then it ended up buying a series of ranches, as you can see, several. What Vern had done would buy and sell ranches, and in each ranch improve those ranches, then sell the ranch, and then buy another ranch and do the same thing. So then in 2019, we did the Fanes. The Fanes of Lonesome Valley, and was fascinating there. The size and the scope of the entire Fane operation was phenomenal. And a lot of it stems from Dan Fane, Granville Dan Fane, who had been a cowboy from day one and became known as the King of the Range. Started out with the Babbitt Ranches, and then bought a 160-acre farm in Camp Verde, and then continued to expand from that. He and his wife, Mildred Black, had one child, and that was Norman. And Norman continued on in the ranch working with Dan, but as Dan continued to grow the ranch, and which eventually became the Rafter 11, which is kind of what we're sitting on the territory right now. Norman continued on the ranch, married Johnny Lee Parsons, and he also was noted as a state senator and very influential in that role. He is responsible for, or largely responsible for, bringing I-17 up to Coors Junction, and then the highway from Coors Junction into Prescott, which had a huge impact on Prescott. And then, of course, created the opportunity to create Prescott Valley. Bill Fane, his son, worked with him to do all that. But their huge contribution, Bill and Nancy Fane, is with the community of Prescott Valley. The tremendous philanthropy that they did for Prescott Valley. And of course, the business now is known as the Fane Signature Group, but the Rafter 11 is still a big part of their business. Okay. So the next one we did was the Fletcher family ranches. And Jim Fletcher is an interesting study here in that a lot of these we talk about going back to the 19th century. Jim didn't get here until the 1990s. So a young man who started ranching, had some success in the construction business and got into ranching and became very successful. His goal is to reconstruct the old Morgan Ranch, which is headquartered up around Paulden. And that ranch spans from Coyote Springs, which is kind of in Prescott Valley, north of Highway 169, and then goes just north of the Verde River. He also has some operations up around Parks, which is in the Williams, Arizona area. So this is just a sort of a photo montage of the Job of the Cowboy branding at the Fletcher Ranch. Basically rope, Medicaid, castrate, brand, repeat. Now, one thing about the Fletchers, are huge in junior rodeo. Every one of Jim's children was very successful competitor in just about every event in Arizona High School Rodeo Association, of which Jim was the president for several years. Jim is also very interested in history, owns the Bank of Arizona building in downtown Prescott, on the corner of Cortez and Gurley Streets, and then also owns the Day Octagon building, which I don't know if you're familiar with that on Gurley Street. It's the original hospital in Prescott. It was built by a Civil War surgeon assigned to Fort Whipple. So Jim owns that. It's now, I think, a real estate company. So the next ranch we did was the Harold and Mitzi James Ranch, which locals here to Prescott are very familiar with the name of Harold and Mitzi James. Their ranch, of course, is the Deep Well Ranch, which is north of Prescott, about 20,000 acres that runs from Prescott up to Chino Valley. That entire span, as you drive up there, all that open country is the Deep Well Ranch. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful ranch, good grass, good water. It has been managed by Bob Burris for the last 40 years. He's been the ranch foreman out there and has been very successful and has won several awards as a ranch manager out there. And these are just a series of photos of working cattle at the Deep Well Ranch. They specialize in Corriente cattle, which is a little bit different, not necessarily a beef breed, but a breed that can be, but used for sport generally. The Harold James family, though, is most known for their philanthropy in Prescott with the YMCA, the Harold James Heart Center, and then many, many other things. The Phippen Museum, they donated the land for the Phippen Museum and were very instrumental. The Phippen Museum of Western Art, for those who aren't from Prescott, were very instrumental in the establishment of that. We have a photo here of the James Family Discovery Gardens at the Highland Center for Natural History, as well as Communication Yavapai Cattle Growers, Rodeo Association, Cattlemen's Association, et cetera, et cetera. Art. If you drive through Prescott up on Highway 89, you'll see these phenomenal sculptures in the roundabouts. Those are largely there due in part to the Harold James Foundation. The 4-H camp and outdoor learning center is definitely made possible by grants and contributions from the James Foundation and many, many other things here. Here's just a sort of a photo of awards that they've received. So, stepping away from this, every one of us that lives in Prescott is in some way impacted by the James family and them coming to Prescott. The next year, we did Monk Maxwell. Cowboy's Cowboy, and he's a friend of yours. He's a friend of mine, just a very unique character. And he really, truly is as cowboy as it comes. And when you look back at his heritage, it goes all the way back to Texas, to the days of the old cattle drives, where his great-grandfather and grandfather drove cattle north from South Texas. In fact, that's how his grandfather met his grandmother. On his mother's side, in Magdalena, New Mexico, was the Steen family, and he operated a ranch out there. I forget the name of it, but it was the only ranch with water in that area, so it was a huge stopping point. Monk's father, Virgil, worked on several ranches in Yavapai County, starting at the ORO, and then took a job as a horse trainer at the Circle Bar Ranch near Paulden, worked for Jeb Stewart. And Virgil, Sr., was known as a horse trainer. If you meet anybody that knew Virgil, they'll say if you wanted a horse finished right, you would take it to Virgil, and then later Monk. Here's a slide. How did Monk get his name? A lot of people ask him. Here's a slide of he climbed up this windmill, much to the consternation of his mother. She looked for him. Finally, he became known as Monk, as the Little Monkey. All right, so Monk is short for monkey. He started roping at the age of 3. First time he had a rope in his hand was at the age of 3. Was given a rope and was hooked ever since. Grew up at the Circle Bar Ranch, which was owned by Jeb Stewart, which is up on the Verde River near Paulden, just downstream from where the Verde River begins. 72 sections, 12 miles along the river. And Virgil and Monk and mother and sister Carla lived there on that location. Monk had, of course, been a cowboy for as long as they had that ranch. Then, after the Circle Bar was sold, Monk went to work for several other ranches. Here's a photo of him working at the Flying V in Springerville. Then went on to start his own business as a contract cowboy. And went into it in a big way. He had a huge amount of success, and particularly in the area of catching wild cattle. And he became known as, if you needed cattle gathered that couldn't be gathered by anybody else or get caught in the wild, had to be moved out for the safety of people out there, Monk was your man. He then married Wanda, and together they bought a couple of ranches in New Mexico and Arizona, which for health reasons they had to sell. And he's now working at the Cross U. He, of course, is a musician, and that's how I know him. Monk and Wanda and I have a little music group that we play music together and have a lot of fun doing it. Okay, so a heck of a fiddle player. The next year, we did the Campbell Family Ranch and had some, fun with that. Campbell Family Ranch was interesting for me because this is where we got into the impact of the railroad and how that brought all ranching in the late 19th century. And Colin Campbell came to Ash Fork, Arizona, and started the Cole Campbell Sheep Company, which at its peak was about 250,000 acres. He passed away in 1927, turned the ranch over to his sons, Frank and Gene Campbell, and they continued to run that operation. The Campbells, interestingly, are responsible for bringing Charolais cattle into this area. They brought it in the 1950s, brought some cattle up from Mexico, the gentleman in Mexico, and here's some photos of some Charolais bulls, brought them over from France. They're actually a French breed, and they're much hardier and larger than Herefords were at that time. But they're also not temperament-wise. They're a challenge. The Campbells then, as the brothers broke up the ranch, their heirs took it over. It's now between Ash Fork and Seligman. It's about 37,000 acres up there. And Hugh Campbell, Joe Campbell's father, was also known for his respected skill in training and working cow dogs, and was huge in that area. Joe Campbell, now in his 60s, as a young man, of course, competed in rodeo, as a lot of cowboys do. Here's a photo of him at Cowpunchers Reunion, huge supporters of Cowpunchers Reunion up in Williams. Joe and his wife Vivian are team ropers and fairly successful, and raise quarter horses, Sea Booger Redline quarter horses, and are very successful with that. And Joe's son, Will, now is operating the ranch, and he's there with his family. Just a wonderful, wonderful family. I had a lot of fun working with these folks, hardworking and dedicated, and throughout their generations. This year, of course, as you mentioned, we did the Kieckhefer family, and this was huge. The Kieckhefer Ranch, as you get into this thing, it just seems to be getting bigger. It just seems to get bigger and bigger all the time. Started out with J.W. Kieckhefer moving to Arizona in 1935, along with Bob and his wife, Dorothy. In 1941, they purchased the K4, which is about 30 miles north of Prescott. Bob Kieckhefer, J.W.'s son, as they continued with the ranch, became very much involved in the American Quarter Horse Association and was very much involved in the development of the Quarter Horse Association. In 1958, they hired Chuck Shepard, and Chuck Shepard, for anybody who's involved in rodeo, will know that the man was a legend. I mean,
yes, he was.
He was a legend, and those slides show that. And then in the late 60s, John Kieckhefer, now John Sr., took over the ranch, and he focused a lot on operational improvements, herd efficiency, and the horse breeding program. Along with Chuck Shepard, they really brought their horse breeding program to a whole nother level with the introduction of the Driftwood line with Driftwood Ike. They stood at stud Driftwood Ike for 17 years, and then later Sea Booger Red. And then in the 1960s, with Chuck, they bought Arizona Pro Rodeos. And this was a stock contracting company. I can't get into the details, but they saved the rodeo in Prescott and also supplied the rodeo stock for Junior Bonner. Now, with this tremendous legacy, of course, their sons, Johnny, Rick, and daughter V, became very successful in ranching and rodeo as well. And they continued to expand the ranch with the purchase of the Bar M Ranch and the 3T Ranch and feed yard down in Douglas, and then purchased the Diamond A. And there's a long story behind that. I don't have time to get into that. They also have the Diamond A, by the way, 750,000 acres. The Diamond A, or they also have a marketing company, K4 Gourmet Beef, and they put on a horse sale every year here in Prescott, which is a phenomenal event called the Legacy Horse Sale. So today, the Kieckefers run 12,000 mama cows on over 1 million acres of Arizona rangeland. I mean, that's how huge this is. It's the largest, one of the largest cattle operations in the Southwest. So that's in lightning speed. That's 10 years of ranch histories at the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering.
Yeah, Joe, it's pretty easy to see that you've become passionate about doing these. It's not a casual interest to you. It's a very, shall I say, dominant interest. Working with these families, I know as I said, I've been involved 35 years in the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering, and I can tell you, and I've said it a lot of times, it's because of the cowboys, their families. Many of them are ranchers. They do some poetry. Years ago, cowboy music and poetry was prominent in their lives because in the evenings there was no TV to watch, there was no phone to make a phone call on, there was no internet, and so they entertained themselves and their neighbors and had barbecues and get-togethers. And I was privileged when I was young to be invited out with Sally Bates to, I think it was Across U at that time. And her family was there and went to a family barbecue and really got exposed to how wonderful those people are. And it's been a love of my life to do that ever since. And I think you're sharing that maybe in a more direct way than I am.
Well, I'm having fun with it. It's certainly, I've learned a tremendous amount about Prescott and the Prescott community and Arizona. And I have a little bit of an agricultural background, but it's just been fascinating for me. And I've developed lifelong friendships. I mean, for each one of these, this ends up being a friendship more than just a presentation. Yeah. And the ranch families get a lot out of it, too, because it becomes I showed just a few slides from each of the presentations, but this ends up to be like a 100-slide photo history that they can then pass on to their children, who can pass on to their children and their children.
Yeah.
So,
and these presentations typically last an hour and a half, under 2 hours.
Yeah, under 2 hours. Usually we get through it in about an hour and 15 minutes with some questions, and we do some photos. Yeah. This one ran a little longer because it was, much larger in scope.
I think it's maybe time to remind our viewers and audience. Many of you come to the gathering. A lot of you have never been. All of the day sessions, Friday afternoon and Saturday, which include the ranch history, which usually is from 1 to 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon at Yavapai College in Prescott, Arizona. All of those day sessions are free to the public. They're part of what we try to do to bring to life the world of cowboys and ranching and the agricultural lifestyle. And Joe, I can't thank you enough for all you've done for the gathering and for our ranch history program, because it not only does it take some passion, but it takes some talents, and we're very fortunate that you have those talents. Want to thank you all for listening to our podcast. We will be continuing them, and our 2026 gathering will be August 6th 7th and 8th, 2026. We invite you to follow us on our website, azcowboypoets.org. We also have a couple of Facebook pages, and I'm very thankful that every day I'm getting to welcome one or more people who have joined our Facebook page and are viewing the posts and seeing what's happening in the world of cowboy poetry. We share a lot of information about other gatherings around, maybe all the way across the USA. I don't see much out of country, but there are some gatherings that are very popular up in Canada. So we hope that you will continue to watch us and enjoy these podcasts, and we look forward to, Joe, maybe we can do an extended podcast on a ranch history in the future.
Sure.
We're going to investigate that. So thank you very much for joining us, and adios.